and welcome to the latest New and Young Masons virtual social. Because there are so many of you, we've had to obviously mute the lines because, as you can imagine, nearly 90 people trying to talk over each other does become a little bit chaotic. So we will unmute you later on when we come to the Q&A session. So what we would ask is, when it comes to the Q&A session, as some of you have already found in the section below where it says chat, you can put your comments, your questions in there, and they can be for our host club, who we will be speaking to shortly, or to our guest as well. So for those of you who haven't joined before, these Zoom socials were started as a catch-up between three clubs, the Sarton Club from Wiltshire, Prorsum Semper from Gloucestershire, and the Essex Cornerstone Club from Essex, which you may have guessed from the name. And we wanted to take advantage of this time that we had and the tools available to us to join our clubs together in a way that we've never done before or tried before, to build stronger bonds, share ideas and best practices. Since that first meeting, we've had several, well, probably 7 social events like this, and we've welcomed more Light Blues, New and Young Mason clubs to showcase what they're all about and the things that they've been up to. Those clubs have been the Leeds Light Blues, Leicestershire and Rutland, Holywell Club, Cambridge Light Blues. We've also had some incredible guests along the way as well. So this evening we're joined by another club in the Colonnade Club from South Wales, and I will hand over to them shortly so they can talk about themselves, what they've been up to let us know any highlights they've had so far. I know they've had plenty, particularly with their very own chapter. But before we do that, it's my honour to welcome tonight's guest speaker, Sir David Hugh Wootton, Assistant Grand Master of the United Grand Lodge of England. David, good evening. And if you're there, please tell me he's here. I'm sure he is.
I'm there, don't worry.
He's here. Oh, that's good. Okay. So David, thank you for joining us. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you shortly. We'll be having a Q&A session with you later, which I hope is still okay. As I said below, gents, please use the chat function to ask any questions that you have. And I'm sure the more challenging the questions, the better for Sir David. I'm sure he'll appreciate that. So get thinking. So to kick this evening off, I'm going to hand over to Lee Thomas, who is the club chairman of the Colonnade Club, along with Samuel Lloyd Williams. Welcome to you both. And hopefully, yes, can you everyone see that? Just a few people can nod their head if you can see the slides.
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Things are going swimmingly. Thank you, Lee. Samuel, I will hand over to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Barry. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, great. Excellent. Thank you. Thanks, gentlemen, for the invitation this evening. My name is Lee. I'm the current chairman of the Colonnade Club. We have a quick PowerPoint to go through. I'm going to time myself as well, so it's like a little bit like a TED talk. I don't want to go over. We have a quick PowerPoint presentation on the club itself. And then afterwards, to speak about the chapter, we have my colleague, Sam Williams, who's the current principal, first principal. Can we go back a second, Andrew? Sorry, to the logo. Cheers, thank you. Well, this is the club logo, obviously. I just wanted to say quickly that it utilises the 3 main colours of the 3 main counties that make up our province, if anyone wondered, which are the counties of Glamorganshire, Radnorshire and Breconshire. So we have the red, gold and the black. And the name, of course, Colonnade, as you may have guessed. Quite fitting as a colonnade of supports. We see the club very much as the support for the future of craft in general in our province. For the next slide, please, Andrew. Andrew is our current chairman, and he's working as my Debbie McGee this evening. On the next one as well, please, Andrew. Thank you. We have 2 university scheme lodges in South Wales, as we have a very large population of young Freemasons. These lodges are based in Swansea and Cardiff. So two quite central points of the province, a club with large Masonic halls. We do have a lot of other younger brethren scattered across the province in the valleys, and we see the club very much, it acts like a gel to hold all of the younger members together as a social network. Go to the next one, please, Andrew. The committee concluded that the best proposition as a club or association for Freemasons who are 45 years of age and under. We have founding members as far afield as China and Nigeria, who came to Wales to study as students, and now, since moving back to the country of their origin, are still members of the club. So pre-lockdown, we were in the process of changing our constitution to allow for this to happen, because it wasn't part of it originally. And it's obviously it's not very fair to throw people out, especially if they're founders, just because they've moved back to work in their own country. Next, please, Andrew. The objects of the club to organise social events for its members and their partners and families. Very important to get to know the families of the members, and to facilitate organised visiting of lodges, which we do quite a lot of. We do try our best as a club to gather as many members as we can to visit lodges where there is a member in the chair, or we know that there are young Masons coming in to be initiated. We do aim to improve the recruitment of younger people, but our problems really as a club.
Can't see me, I don't know what it is, but I don't think it matters.
Well, you can't see me. It might be better for them if they can't see me. We okay?
Yeah, all good.
Oh, good. Well, our club, we have the same kind of problems as Freemasonry in general, really, which is recruitment and retention. So we're in the middle of looking at that, really. We do have a very good member base at the moment. If you could move to the next slide, please, Andrew. The founding of the Colonnade Club, obviously, early discussions took place by email between the provincial executive and the founding committee, which was a tremendous boon for us to have the provincial executive involved from the very earliest. They've been a tremendous support, and have really done their best to support us in every aspect of the club. Our executive were immediately supportive, well, I just said that. This occurred on the 22nd of March 2014 at the Prince of Wales pub in Cardiff, with just three Freemasons in attendance. And I believe those Freemasons, it wasn't me, I wasn't there, were our founding chairman, Ben Gate, which is now our provincial Grand Secretary, Andrew Gray, the founding secretary of the club, who I've already introduced as my Debbie McGee of the evening, and Colin Morgan, our immediate past chairman of the club, as the founding treasurer. Okay, can we have the next slide, please? The committee decided on St. David's Day 2015 as an appropriate date for the launch event. And of course, this gave us plenty of lead time to build support and attract founding members to the club in its launch. And the Provincial Grand Secretary supported the organisational effort and was fundamental in the launch event being a massive success that day. At the time, it was Worshipful Brother Gerald Rowbottom, who is currently the most excellent Grand Superintendent of our province as well. If you go to the next slide, please, Andrew. Here's a quick picture of the event. Notice the drinks. And I would say I wasn't a founding member at the time, brethren. I was far too green in my Masonic years. And you would bet if I was there, I'd have pushed myself to the front of that picture as well. Go to the next slide, thank you. The Right Worshipful Provincial Grand Master, Right Worshipful Brother Gareth Jones, OBE, very kindly agreed to be the club's president and address the members at the launch, and has been a tremendous support since. The club began its life with 48 members and 7 honorary members. And if we could go to the next slide, please. And we now have 120 members, or in excess of, which is tremendous news for us. We were going to celebrate our fifth anniversary, I should say, with a big event, massive dinner, which obviously we've had to cancel, unfortunately, because of the lockdown. If you could move to the next slide, please. We did manage to have the New Young Masons Club conference in 2018 in Cardiff Masonic Hall. And so David was very good to come and support as president of the university scheme, to come and talk to us about the university scheme. And there's a picture as well of our provincial Grand Master there, Bishop of Gareth Jones, who introduced us. Next slide, please, Andrew. Our regular fixtures throughout the year. We do tend to put a lot of socials on. We do find the best socials are informal drinks, funnily enough. And as you can see, I have now entered the fray with the pictures always in a drink in my hand. Next slide, please, Andrew. We also have the annual trip to the December quarterly communications. And I think we've attended that for the last 4 years with the Monmouthshire Light Blues. So it's always an event that we look forward to, including our AGM is a massive, big event as well. And that's where I got involved, brethren, because we got invited to the AGM. And of course, you meet so many like-minded brethren, and we get to have a good time and a laugh over some drinks. If you go to the next one, please. I would now like to hand over to Sam Williams, who will talk about the chapter. So we're very aware of the time, we don't want to go over. So thank you, brother. Thank you for listening. I'll speak to you again soon.
Good evening, brethren. I hope you can all hear me. My name is Samuel Williams, and as the current first principal of Colonnade chapter, I'm delighted to have the opportunity to talk to you about our club Colonnade chapter this evening. As we've already heard, the Colonnade Club was founded on St. David's Day in 2015. Like so many other New and Young Masons clubs, as we've already heard, the club seeks to facilitate and develop Masonic knowledge, experiences, and enjoyment of its members. The opportunity, therefore, to bring club members together in a formal Masonic unit aligned well with this objective. And being aware of other excellent affiliations, such as the Connaught Club's association with Burgoyne Lodge, number 902, the Colonnade Club Committee at the time were keen to pursue the possibility of establishing a similar undertaking here in South Wales. However, several considerations led the committee to conclude that rejuvenating a craft lodge, or indeed consecrating a new lodge, would be impractical. And exactly 2 years after the club's formation, on St. David's Day in 2017, the Colonnade chapter was consecrated. Facilitating an opportunity for members of the Colonnade Club to take the next step in their Masonic journey emphasised the completion of pure ancient Masonry and the indissoluble link between craft and Royal Arch Masonry in our province. The possibility of consecrating a new chapter was an exciting venture for the province and deemed a fitting tribute to our club president, who we've already heard is the Right Worshipful Provincial Grand Master of South Wales, Right Worshipful Brother Gareth Jones, who, as you will be aware, in 2016 was most deservedly preferred as the most excellent third Grand Principal in Supreme Grand Chapter. The Colonnade Club has always enjoyed the indefatigable support of the executive. Indeed, the most excellent third Grand Principal was installed as our Primus First Principal, and the most excellent Grand Superintendent was our Primus Scribe E. And we continue to enjoy the regular and unwavering support of many distinguished companions. As I hope you will have noticed from the presentation on your screen, the club and the chapter are very closely linked, and the club's logo features prominently in our chapter's insignia. The Grand Superintendent has also permitted members to wear our club tie at chapter meetings. The chapter meets 3 times a year and on a Saturday, which helps emphasize the conviviality of the occasion and reduces the tension sometimes felt by young working men rushing to a Masonic meeting after work. The average age of our 42 subscribing companions is 45 and a half years. And we have our own Colonnade Club ritual, which was adapted by the past Grand Superintendent specifically to cater for multiple exaltations. During the first year of the chapter, the team, led by the most excellent third Grand Principal, exalted 9 new companions, and members of the Colonnade Club are proud to represent not the future of Masonry, but the present. I'll hand you back over to our chairman.
There we go. Thank you, Sam. I won't take any more of your time. I'm very aware of the time. I'd just like to thank Barry for emceeing this evening, and Mitch as well for your support over the last few days. And thank you, all of you, for your support, really. I mean, it's a wonderful thing to have these light blue clubs come together, and you've done an exceptional job with this since lockdown as well, especially with these Zoom talks. So we're very, very happy to be invited, and thank you very much, and we'll hand you back over. Thank you.
Lee, Sam, thank you very much for that. Very informative. I don't think there's any questions in the chat function. Matt or Mitch, I couldn't see any. Just a couple of questions for me on your chapter. Do you have to be a member of the club to join your chapter?
Yes, that's the aim. Really was to have almost like I think I heard it termed earlier today as a retirement home for members of the Colonnade Club. That as time went on, that members would gravitate towards the Colonnade chapter as a means of continuing their engagement with the club and with the friendships that they've established through the social side of what the club has to offer.
Great. Okay. And so, you also said that your ritual kind of differs slightly. How does it differ? What's the what was the aim of changing the ritual?
The angle came from the initial interest, I think, in setting up the chapter, that we had quite a long list of potential exaltees. And as we started to look towards planning our meetings over the course of the year, we were quite keen to conduct a number of multiple exaltations where candidates were taken through simultaneously. So our ritual was adapted from the workers we have here in South Wales to accommodate that additional sort of floor work and, of course, the few words here and there which were made plural rather than singular.
Gotcha. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. I'm going to move on to the next part of the agenda now, which is the welcoming the other clubs who are on the call this evening. So I'm going to be quite strict on this one because I know that sometimes we can ramble on for a while, and everyone's got 30 seconds each club to introduce themselves. I've got a list of names. I hope they're right. And I will start with the first one, who is Jack Gilliland, Essex Cornerstone Club. Jack.
Good evening. Thank you, Barry. Good evening and welcome from the Cornerstone Club. Thank you all for joining and supporting this evening's call. And on behalf of the Cornerstone, I'd especially like to welcome Sir David. And from the province of Essex, our Provincial Grand Master, Rodney Lister-Bass, our club patron and the Deputy Provincial Grand Master, Paul Reeves, and our Cornerstone Lodges APGM, Peter Hollingsworth. Having done a few of these joint events now, many of you will already be quite familiar with the Cornerstone. So I won't keep you too long, and obviously we're already under strict orders from Barry. However, for people joining for the first time, the Cornerstone was established in 2016 as a means to connect young Masons 40 years and younger throughout the province of Essex. The club is run entirely by its members, and in this time we have amassed just under 250. We run a monthly social programme throughout the year, including a mix of charity and educational events, and stay connected with all our members across a multitude of social media platforms. To allow past members to stay connected after reaching a limit for club membership, last year we also consecrated our own lodge, where we were honoured by the presence of Sir David, which is open to all new and young Mason Club members to come and visit as well. During the COVID lockdown, we've remained active, not only taking part in these joint new and young Masons Club socials, but also hosting our own club ones, along with being one of the first Masonic bodies to start a charity drive to supply iPads to hospital wards, to allow patients who can't have visitors at the moment the chance to connect with their relatives. Our committee are now hard at work preparing for when Masonry can resume with a number of events in the pipeline, including preparations for our annual dinner. And lastly, before Barry tells me my time is up, thank you to all the clubs.
It's been up. Keep going, just keep going. Okay, fine, you stopped. That's right. Thanks, Jack. David Little, Sarson Club, 30 seconds.
Thanks very much, Barry. So first of all, very quickly, I would just like to welcome on behalf of, from everybody in the Sarson Club, both the Colonnade Club, lovely presentation, great to hear about your club, to hearing what you have to say a little bit later on. Once again, without taking up too much time, just a very brief overview of the Sarson Club. We are a young Masons club with a cut-off age of 40 within Wiltshire. Wiltshire is quite a small province. We only have 44 lodges overall. And we currently stand with a membership at 76. So we're quite a small club in that presence. We started in 2014, but it's only really been in the last 2 years that we've started to excel, and that's largely because of the current committee that we've got in place and all the good work they're doing, as well as the regular visiting and supporting of the other members as they're starting to go through their first, second, third degrees. And support from our executive team as well, which does make a huge difference. So once again, thank you very much for having us, and looking forward to the rest of the evening.
That's great. Thanks, David. James Bartlett from Prorsum Semper.
Well, a very warm welcome to you all from Prorsum Semper, the Gloucestershire Light Blues Club, particularly to the Colonnade Club joining us this evening. And of course to Sir David. We're all looking forward to hearing what you're going to be speaking about. And on behalf of Prorsum Semper, I'd like to welcome our president, Right Worshipful Brother Tim Henderson Ross, who joins us this evening. Prorsum Semper is the motto of the county of Gloucestershire and means forever forward, which is particularly apt for a light blues club. And we are very much a light blues club. The moment you get any provincial honours, you have to leave, but it does mean that we have no age exemption on membership whatsoever, and all light blues are welcome. The club supports lodges, tries to get to every initiation in the province, and now, after just under 2 years of existence, has round about 140 members. So we hope you all have an excellent evening and look forward to seeing you again on another occasion.
Thank you, James, for that. Who's next? We've got Matt Namara from Leeds Light Blues.
Thank you, Barry. A warm welcome and hello to you, brethren all, on behalf of the Leeds Light Blues Club. We would like to welcome to the Colonnade Club. We're looking forward to getting to know you over the coming weeks. And it's wonderful to see that you too have made your mark for the benefit of Freemasonry in the form of establishing a Holy Royal Arts chapter. We'd like to extend an especially warm welcome to our Assistant Grand Master, Sir David Wootton. We're thrilled to have an audience with you this evening, and especially from a fellow Yorkshireman. After meeting Sir David at the University Scheme Conference in Cheshire last year, it was clear to see the passion for nurturing and leading initiatives for the good of Freemasonry. And this is re-emphasised again by your presence here today, for which we'd like to thank you for your time. We started in April 2019 with a meeting every 2 months. We've begun educational afternoons, however, come lockdown, our plans were put on hold, but this doesn't stop us from taking the initiative. We launched the Leeds Light Blues podcast with now over 1,500 listeners from 21 different countries around the world. We launched a series of lectures with attendees from down the road to New Zealand and South Africa. And of course, we joined in this great initiative, which is aimed at bringing Freemasons together from across the land. So we'd like to welcome you all today, and again, a very good evening.
Brilliant, thanks, Matt. Dennis from Leicestershire and Rutland.
Good evening, all brethren. Thank you, Mitch and Barry, and a special welcome to Right Worshipful Brother Sir David, and also to Lee and Samuel for a brilliant introduction to the Colonnade Club and Chapter. My name is Dennis Commentine, originally from Holland, and I'm the Vice Chairman of the Leicestershire and Rutland Light Blue Club. I'll introduce our club, our events, and final requests from our rugby club, just like last time. So Leicestershire and Rutland Lions Blues Club is 8 years young, so inception in 2012. Bob Ray as the chairman, who's also on this call, and the provincial grandmaster, Right Worshipful Brother Peter Kinder as our president. Our committee members are all light blues and yet to attain the chair. In terms of our events and socials, they're primarily targeted, therefore, towards the new younger Masons, but we do not limit attendance based on age nor rank. As a matter of fact, we find the mix to be a great way to increase that vital sense of belonging. In terms of membership, we're open to all brethren within the province and consider everyone to be a member, as we have no registration process and no fees. Again, to come back to that mix. So during the lockdown, we've organized poker, family pub quizzes, time to toast, and a few weeks ago we had the privilege of hosting the 2020 Prestonian lecture by Worshipful Brother George Boy Stone, which was very well attended. At the moment, we are really focusing on beyond COVID-19 2021 and also supporting the province with achieving our 2022 festival target. Finally, quick request from our Light Blues Rugby Club. If any of you would like a match or advice on how to set up your own rugby club, give my guys a shout. We're more than happy to help you. Thank you, brethren.
Brilliant, thanks, Dennis. And the final one is Edward from Cambridge Light Blues.
Edward, are you there?
Hi guys. Yeah, no, you've got our chairman on board somewhere, Lee Wilson. Lee and Will were together on the screen. I'm not sure if they can unmute themselves and do a quick 30 seconds. If not, you'll have to put up with me for some time.
Lee Wilson, you will be able to unmute yourself wherever you are.
Hello, I'm Lee Wilson, chairman of the Cambridgeshire Light Blues. On behalf of the Light Blues, I'd like to thank you all for inviting us to this virtual intersocial club. We were received very warmly and it was welcomed. Thoroughly enjoyed the talk from Dr. Vicky Carroll about the Museum of Freemasonry. And we're looking forward to the talk this evening by the Right Worshipful Assistant Grand Master, Sir David Hugh Wootton. Our lodge is very slow starting. Our Light Blues was very slow starting, but the last year it's escalated. We're now up in the hundreds of members that have joined, and our provincial team have got behind us and are now, anyone coming in receives paperwork straight away once they're initiated to join the Light Blues. If they don't sign it, then that doesn't mean they're not invited, but once they're signed, they can opt in and join us. If they're not wanting to, don't sign it, and then it runs from there, basically. But we've got representatives in every single lodge that stand up every time, tell everyone what's going on in the Light Blues, the events that we're holding. But at the moment, due to COVID, we're sort of shelved at the moment, but we're not stopped thinking about what we're going to do. We've still got our trip to France once we're done, get out of the COVID season. And that's about it, really, at the moment. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you very much for that. So I am going to, as everybody's already said, just thank you to all the PGMs, the Deputy PGMs, Assistant Provincial Grand Masters this evening that have joined us. It's really great that you're here to support your clubs. I know before some of you joined, we did a shout out to Ian Heathcock, who works on the Find My Lodge app, who has now put a section on there for new and young Mason Light Blues clubs. So it makes it easier for us all to kind of find each other. Ian, thank you for that. So I'm now going to hand over to Sir David. So again, remember, questions below. And Sir David, over to you.
Barry, thank you very much. And good evening, brethren. Great pleasure for me to be with you, and thank you for asking me and good to see such numbers, 94 participants in this meeting. My name is indeed David Wootton, and I'm a Mason like you, but with the title of Assistant Grand Master, which means technically I'm number 4 after the Grand Master himself, then the Pro-Grand Master Peter Lowndes and the Deputy Grand Master Jonathan Spence. I became a master, a Mason 44 years ago. Unbelievable, brethren, isn't it? I know. And because for most of those years, I had no time left over after a full-time job as a lawyer in London and making a minor contribution to bringing up a family, I was only in one lodge and one chapter. The lodge I was initiated into was Argonauts number 2243, a London lodge, a rowing lodge. Rowing was my sport, and when I was leaving university, one of my rowing coaches asked me if I was going to work in London. Yes, I said. Would I like to join something which would keep me in touch with rowing? Fine, well then turn up at this place on that date and time wearing a white shirt, dark suit, rowing club tie, no mention of masonry. I did, and when the blindfold came off, there were all my rowing coaches beaming at me and lots of people I knew in the world of rowing. I was lucky. The way things fell out, I was the 99th Worshipful Master of the Argonauts, and at the centenary meeting installed the centenary master in the presence of the then Deputy Grand Master, himself a rowing man. I had a good time. There were no other lawyers in the lodge. I never got a client or a piece of work out of it, but I wouldn't have wanted that because masonry was a step away, a step above, I'd say, my working life, and I didn't want the two mixed. From my very happy early years in the Argonauts, I learned two things. One, what a wonderful thing masonry is for bringing people together who may not otherwise meet, or not meet in the way that masonry does, without an agenda from another part of life, particularly when the members have a common interest. Could be rugby, could be motorbiking, could be military, could be anything. In my case, it was rowing. Two, that masonry helps bring together the generations in a way that nothing else does, and means younger men can meet older men who are not their boss or their dad, though dad may be a Mason too. Mine wasn't, and I have noticed an increasing number of sons bringing their dads into masonry, which is great. Generations implies young people. There were no young and Masons clubs when I started out in masonry, and their creation is one of the best things that has happened in recent years. I indeed went to the Cardiff conference a couple of years ago. It was brilliant, full of ideas for what we could be doing, bubbling with enthusiasm. And the great thing light blues clubs have pioneered is Masons meeting together, as we're doing now, away from formal lodge meetings, socializing, enjoying each other's company. Many lodges work perfectly well only meeting as lodges, but meeting in other forums opens up a whole new dimension. So I congratulate all of you, all the New and Young Masons Club represented this evening, and those who thought of the idea of doing this kind of event. And I join with everyone else in welcoming the Colonnade Club. The importance of this generations point has come home to me really strongly in recent years. When I was new to the Argonauts, we operated on our own. Only rowers were asked to join. The only guests tended to be other rowers. We never saw a grand officer. We didn't know what Grand Lodge was, other than that we got a bill from it each year. Fast forward, however, to now being Assistant Grand Master, which involves lots of meetings deciding important things about masonry, e.g., whom to recommend to the Grand Master to appoint as provincial Grand Masters or Grand Superintendents. It involves the big ceremonies, Grand Lodge quarterly communication, installation of new provincial rulers, lodge bicentenaries, provincial charity festivals, etc., etc., where I have to look good, remember everyone's name, and make a speech shorter than the organisers fear it might be. But the real job is getting out and about, showing that the centre, the leadership, is working for all Masons everywhere, interested in learning what's going on, picking up the latest new idea, the new best practice, the new gizmo from a province, a lodge, a chapter, a light blues club, taking it back to Grand Lodge and, of course, presenting it there as my own. Mitch, could I have the first slide, please? You may have seen this, brethren. This map appears in Freemasonry Today, page 89, I think, or 69, every issue now, and shows the 47 provinces in England and Wales, plus London. London is an area, not a province, the metropolitan area it's called. The provinces are numbered alphabetically, 2 to 48, and London is number 1, very sensitive London, you know. To assist workings between Grand Lodge and the provinces, we divide the provinces into regions, 9 of them, operating through regional communication groups, which you can see up the left-hand side, color-coded on the map. Provinces in RCGs 1 to 9, and London on its own again, RCGA. Brethren, you'll be able to work out from this map which province and region you're in. Lee and Andrew, for example, are in the province of the Colonnade Club, the province of South Wales, which, Mitch, if you take it down a bit, you will see is number 42 in RCG 4. A lodge can only be in one province at a time, though you do find little quirks. There are always quirks in Masonry, like a lodge registered in one province and meeting in another. And most provinces have a New and Young Masons Club, and some have more than one. In the RCGs, the provincial Grand Masters and Grand Superintendents and others meet 3-4 times a year to discuss issues of common interest and to receive communications from the centre, talk then to their lodges in their provinces and pass messages back up. So Tim Henderson-Ross, Provincial Grand Master of Gloucestershire, is on the call. Delighted that he is. You can see just at the top there, he is number 15 in RCG 4 and meets with the provincial leaders of rulers of those other provinces. And it's a system that is fairly new, but is getting going. And for example, to coordinate and promote local community and charity work in response to COVID-19, a special group, one each from those RCGs, has been set up to make sure that what individual lodges and provinces are doing in response to COVID-19 is coordinated and makes sense, and the money which is coming out of the Masonic Charitable Foundation ends up through the provinces in the right place. So it's a very good system. Final point on this map, this is English Constitution Masonry. There is Scottish Masonry in Scotland with the Grand Lodge in Edinburgh. There is Irish Masonry in Ireland, run from Dublin, but covering the whole of Ireland and with 3/4 of the Masons in Ireland in Northern Ireland, though it's run from Dublin. Work that out, brethren, another little quirk. Mitch, thank you very much. Can you take that slide down, please? my point here, Mitch, can you take the slide down?
It wouldn't be the same if there was, there we go. It's that one, and then I've only got the across the globe one.
Yeah, that's the one. Well, can you go back, just take that off so I can see everybody?
Of course.
The next bit.
One Mick, one job. That's it.
Lovely, lovely. Now, my point here, brethren, is the rulers like me aim to visit in some form or other as many provinces as we can, as often as we can, and to keep in touch with members everywhere, two-way communication, as will happen this evening. Part of this for me is the university scheme, of which I am the president. Lodges that have a focus, usually not the only focus, on attracting and bringing into Masonry and retaining university people, undergraduates, graduates, teaching staff, other staff, but mainly undergrads, who by definition are going to tend to be largely young. There are 90 lodges and 7 chapters in the scheme, and I'm delighted that Colonnade chapter number 7305 has indeed been mentioned as in the scheme, and I think I saw that Roger from Rahir Lodge number 2546 is in the meeting, and Rahir is also a university scheme lodge. Those lodges and chapters are spread over 38 out of the 47 provinces, and yes, you're right, London as well. It is fantastic, isn't it, to watch younger Masons' ability to pick up ritual quickly. Like the brother from Oxfordshire I saw, who had just become a Master Mason, noticed that he'd have the 2nd and 3rd tracing boards in his ceremonies in the 3 degrees, but not the 1st tracing board. So he decided he would have a go because he was curious, and he did the whole thing straight at a meeting I was at, only 11 pages in the book. And I'm sure you're all now itching to have a go at that too, brethren. I have been out and about to more than 50 of the university's scheme lodges and to most provinces, though I've got 1 or 2 still to go. It's not just England and Wales, but around the world. And now, Mitch, could you put the across the globe slide up, please? This is also, brethren, from Freemasonry Today, and shows English Constitution Masonry around the world. And here you see things called districts, which are groupings of 5 or more lodges in a region. For example, if you look at the column 2, number 2, Caribbean, the second from the left, and just immediately below the map, says Kingston, Georgetown, the district Grand Lodge of Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, 24 lodges. Districts function like provinces here. They have a district Grand Master, district Grand Secretary, district Grand everything that we have, provincial Grand everything, and each district ranks on a par with each of the provinces. You will also see things called groups. If you look in number 5, Europe, just below the map, it says Portugal, the group of lodges in Portugal, 4 lodges. If you have fewer than 5 lodges, you're only going to be a group. If you have 5 or more, you can be a district. And groups have a grand inspector at the head rather than a district grand master. Work that out. And then there are the NUDs, lodges not under a district, where there are not enough of them in one area to be a group. E.g., if you stop right there, Mitch, go down again, or go up a bit. That's it. If you see in the 3rd column from the left, which is actually headed Atlantic, the bottom one, Jamestown, says St. Helena Lodge number 488. St. Helena is nowhere near Bermuda or Nassau in the Bahamas as on the map. It's fairly close to Namibia in the South Atlantic between South Africa and South America, but there is an English lodge there. It's on its own, and we have to look after it separately. Now, in most of these places, there is Scottish and Irish constitutional masonry as well as English, usually greater numbers in the English lodges than Scottish, then Irish, but it's not the case that membership goes by nationality. E.g., the Scots don't necessarily join the Scottish lodges, and that's because in most of these places the membership is local, not expats. In some of these places, not all, there is a sovereign Grand Lodge of that country. An example is a complex model. If you go down to the bottom of the slide, please, Mitch. Keep going, right down to the bottom. You will see number 12 on the left, on the right hand there, New Zealand. In New Zealand, they refer to masonry by talking about the 4 constitutions: English, Scottish, Irish, New Zealand, and the members of each are almost all New Zealanders. By contrast, just to the left, you see Australia, number 11. Each Australian state has its own sovereign Grand Lodge, and the English are down to 4 solitary lodges. You could instantly conclude that all this is to do with British influence in former centuries, but it's not all empire. If you could go back to the top of this slide, please, Mitch, and we will look. Keep going, keep going, keep going. On the top right, number 4, South America. None of those countries were British colonies. It's due to British trading interests, and our lodges sit alongside the sovereign Grand Lodges of those countries, which are big and very successful, and there is history. The masonry we know was born of freedom of thought in the 18th century, the Age of Enlightenment. And Masonic light is the light of freedom of thought and knowledge. The contrasting darkness was the darkness of the repression then of the Catholic Church, which only allowed followers to read and think what the Church approved. George Washington and a good number of others who signed the American Declaration of Independence were Masons, and when the Spanish Empire in South America, a key part of the Catholic Church's influence, collapsed in the early 1800s after Napoleon had duffed up Spain and Wellington had duffed up Napoleon, the leaders who took the Spanish-speaking countries of South America to independence were all Masons. General Belgrano in Argentina, Bernardo O'Higgins in Chile, and Simon Bolivar in Bolivia, etc. Star of the East Lodge on the Greek island of Zakynthos. Mitch, if you could go down a bit until we can see number 5, Europe. There we are. Right down the bottom, brethren, Zakynthos, Star of the East Lodge. Zakynthos is one of the islands near Corfu, called the Ionian Islands, on the west side of Greece. And those islands were British controlled until 1860, when the British persuaded the Greek population to hold a democratic referendum on joining the Kingdom of Greece, which they did. Sensing that that was coming down the track, some British Army officers formed a lodge on Zakynthos, Star of the East. Now it's got 150 members, all local to the island, no British, works in Greek using an unauthorized translation, and it's the leading social organization on the island. Anybody who's anybody on Zakynthos wants to join the English Lodge. Singapore is interesting in a different way. Mitch, can you go down to the bottom of this slide, please? There we have Singapore in number 10, the Far East. Brethren, you will see it's a district. It's called, the curious name, District Grand Lodge of Eastern Archipelago, 40 lodges, and there are several in Singapore. The population of Singapore is Malay, Chinese, and Tamil, and the government need to keep those elements in harmony and look to British figures to provide neutral focal points or heroes. Singapore was founded as a trading post 200 years ago by Sir Stamford Raffles, and there are some unsavoury moments on his record, I can tell you, but not in Singapore. And for Singapore's 200th anniversary celebrations last year, the government of Singapore asked our brethren there, number 10 the Far East, to organise a show, a stage show, on the life of Sir Stamford Raffles, who was, of course, a Mason. And it was amazing, all performed very professionally by members of Singapore lodges. These are all places where Masonry is allowed, it's legal. Countries with totalitarian regimes shut Masonry down, and we've learnt in the university scheme to be careful when initiating candidates from those countries. An Oxfordshire lodge brought in a student here who was from Iran, where Masonry is forbidden. And when the brother was at home in Iran between terms, there was literally a knock on the door from the police accusing him of being a Mason. He had the wit to deny it, and the police found no evidence because he'd left everything at university here. Otherwise, a grim fate. Now, how do I know all this, brethren? Because it's the job of all the rulers to look after the districts as well as the provinces, and it's my particular job to look after the groups and the nuds, the ones on their own, and the matter of getting out and about. Now, it's at this point, brethren, that you will all shout out, thank goodness for the assistant Grand Master. Someone has to go to these beautiful places, and we're glad it's him. Thank you, AGM. I've been to a good number, not all. I haven't been to St. Helena yet, but I have been to our lodge in Valparaiso, Chile. If you go, keep going right to the top, Valparaiso, Chile is where the O of Santiago is in the top right-hand corner, brethren. Every fourth Tuesday there is a Masonic meeting in the hall. Every other Tuesday, though, is a social, same place, and it's a big event, and they all go. In one of my more insane moments, I went to a Masonic meeting there, left the festive board at midnight, car to a hotel at Santiago Airport, early flight to Buenos Aires, overnight flight to Heathrow, meet my wife in the Terminal 5 car park to exchange my South American kit for my clothes for India, breakfast with her at Garfunkel's before flying to Chennai and the district of Madras. That's the life of an assistant Grand Master, brethren. Thank you, Mitch. You can take the slide down. Thank you very much. Everywhere, brethren, in these places, and this is the point, I see youth, lots of young brethren in large numbers, full of enthusiasm, keen to progress and participate, and we can learn from them here. An initiation I went to in a university scheme lodge in Johannesburg. And when you're an AGM, just as when you're a provincial Grand Master, as you're processing into a lodge, you learn to scan the lodge very quickly and get a picture as you're processing in. Now, in Johannesburg, I was instantly struck as I walked in. On the back row, all around the lodge, were white or grey-haired, this is Johannesburg, white or grey-haired white people of a certain age. In the front row, all around, were young black people, mainly students. The worshipful master was of Indian heritage, and the entire ceremony was performed by him and brethren in the front row, entered apprentices, fellow crafts, and the charge to the initiate immaculately done by a brother on the front row who had undergone his 3rd degree just the previous meeting. Really inspiring stuff. If there's one serious point to make this evening, brethren, it's this: we're used here to welcoming into Masonry brethren of different faiths and cultures. I went to Caribbean Lodge, a London lodge in the university scheme, a 6-hander initiation, 6 countries, actually none being in the Caribbean as it happened. And I was able to joke that one of those 6 countries was Yorkshire. They used 5 different volumes of the Sacred Law. In current circumstances nationally, with Black Lives Matter and other thoughts going on, the one thing we Masons can do is make a special but sustained effort to attract and keep more candidates from the BAME community. we will have to go out and find them, because they won't come to us otherwise in sufficient numbers. And that, brethren, would be truly fulfilling our social mission. Meanwhile, I thank you for listening, for inviting me. I would welcome your questions, and whether you'll be thinking of a brother in the same lodge, the same club, or elsewhere, and whether, like me, brethren, you'll be thinking of brethren I met in Bermuda, Cape Town, the Gambia, and Fiji, wherever, and I know, brethren, someone has to do it. Looking at my computer clock, it is precisely 9 o'clock, and I would be delighted if you would join me in a toast. Barry, do you want me to go straight on with the toast? Do you need to do a screenshot of this?
That's down to Mitch. That's all technical stuff.
Yes, if you could just propose the toast, and it usually takes about 10 seconds. We've got a few screens to take photos of. So if you could just keep your smile and keep your glass elevated, that'd be very good. Alan, take it away.
Yep, ready to go.
Brethren, toast to brethren.
Nearly there. One more. And done, brethren.
Great. Great stuff. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, David. And over to you, Barry.
David, thank you. That was really informative. And I will hand over to Matty, who is going to be doing the Q&A. I'm sure he's got plenty of questions to be going through.
Thank you, Barry. So on to the Q&A with Sir David. We've got plenty of questions to get through. The first, we've got Steve from the Sarsen Club. So I'd kindly ask Steve just to unmute himself and ask the question to Sir David himself.
So David, good evening. I wrote this far better than I'm probably going to be able to say it. And our Grand Secretary has done a cracking job over recent years of dispelling a number of myths around Masonry and such like. And my question to you revolves around, as a senior and high-profile Mason, how have you coped and avoided all the controversy around your membership of Masonry, as you've had a high-profile civic career as well?
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. If you like the political answer, and just those who don't know, I'm one of the older, which is elected councillor in the City of London. I was Lord Mayor of the City of London back in 2012. The political answer, Steve, is by my never referring to it. If you like, wait in my other work, and by not doing anything which indicates that I know that the other person I'm talking to is a Mason. As I say, that's a political answer. Whenever it's raised with me, I draw attention to the good things that Masonry is doing, and that usually deals with the issue being raised. I make no secret of being a Mason. As a local council, like a local council everywhere, you have to register your interests on a public register. And on my public register in the City of London, I put the words Assistant Grand Master, United Grand Lodge of England, and I then list all the lodges that I'm a member of. So and any member of the public can get hold of that. So that I think is the answer. But by not setting myself, not leading with my chin, but always when it's raised with me, making sure that I'm emphasising the good bits. And I do increasingly respond to ill-informed criticism when somebody, either in casual conversation or otherwise, retails one of the myths about Masonry. I make sure I pick it up, and it's quite easy to do in that sense.
That's a great question, Steve. Thank you. I managed just to snip one in just after Steve, and my question to you, Sir David, is how do you think the pandemic will positively affect Masonry going forward post-pandemic?
I think it will affect us in three ways. One, it has led us throughout the country and indeed throughout the world to think with greater focus about the community work that we are doing. We don't do it to get credit. That's a bit of an incidental benefit, but there is no doubt from the press coverage, local and national, that we are being increasingly recognised for the good low-key work that we are doing. And many of the schemes that Masons are doing locally and nationally are things that we haven't done before and which we will continue. So one positive outcome is better and more focused local community engagement and greater recognition of that. The second is what we're doing now, which is keeping in touch. I did refer in what I said to the fact that, in part through the Light Blues clubs, there was a greater occurrence of Masons meeting, if you like, socially meeting outside formal lodge meetings. If you have a lodge that only meets 4 or 5 times a year, as many lodges, particularly in London, do, and if you never see each other apart from those lodge meetings, the actual personal bond between you isn't going to be great, unless, as in the Argonauts, a rowing lodge, the members of that see each other at rowing events down the year. But in the absence of some bond like that, there isn't much to keep members together. I've noticed a large number of lodges just within the lodge are having Zoom type social get-togethers, and I think that will continue, i.e. meeting without having to travel, without cost, on Zoom or other media. I think will be another positive benefit. We are slightly conscious of the risk that perhaps particularly with some older Masons not being able to practice their Masonry for a number of months may lead them to the view that they're quite happy to do without it and may not come back. Whether that happens will depend very much on the extent to which others in the lodge or indeed the province have kept in touch with them. I think for younger brethren, example again tonight, being able to discovering, not much of a discovery in the sense, but the getting used to using media like this will be another positive outcome, keeping us all together. And I've noticed that meetings on Zoom or Teams or whatever it is, like lodge committee meetings, can indeed are usually a lot more efficient and focused, and people by and large tend to be better behaved and a bit briefer in what they say. So community work and engagement, staying in touch, and efficiency of how we do things are 3 positive outcomes that I see coming from this.
That's great, thank you. Merrick Jones for the Colonnade Club, you've got a question. If you could condense it a little bit, that would be wonderful.
I will certainly try. Thank you very much, and Sir David, it's lovely to see you. And thank you for that talk. My question was, the South Wales Provincial Grand Stewards Lodge last month were very lucky to be able to actually host George Boyce Stones in the first official delivery of the 2020 Prestonian lecture, but we do obviously thank the Leeds Light Blues for the proof of concept and showing it was possible. That talk was very much around William Preston and his vision of the future of Freemasonry and how he drafted his constitutions which framed the future. There was a question at the end of that talk about where the next William Preston might come from. And I was wondering if you have seen through the NYMC movement that we have the potential that somewhere amongst our ranks is the next William Preston or the like?
I can certainly see in the ranks of the light blue clubs a number, quite a number of future leaders in a variety of ways in Masonry. I confess that my knowledge of William Preston himself is not sufficient to pinpoint the precise characteristic that he represented. But you can tell amongst those who are inventing and progressing and moving forward the light blues movement, if I can put it that way, a number of those who will have a lot to contribute in senior positions in the future. So yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, I've just tried to find the mute button. Thank you for that question. Next, we've got Reynolds Morgan. If you could just say your question, that'd be great.
Good evening, Sir David. I'm just finished my on-call shift in medicine in Nottingham, and we first met in Malta a few years ago. Wanted to ask, would it be worth joining a lodge with livery company links, or keeping the two separate, at least initially?
It's probably an obvious immediate question. Are you a member of a livery company?
Not yet. It's work in progress.
Yes. It varies, to be honest. Some of the livery company lodges are very close to their livery companies. There's a lot of common membership and mission practices, such as you're only going to be asked to join the lodge if you are a member of the livery company. Where that's the case, I would say yes, and particularly where the livery company is close to a particular industry or trade or profession. There are a couple of livery companies that have a lot to do with the medical world, one the surgery side and one the clinician and pharmaceutical side. In those cases, I would think it would be, because it's another aspect of common interest. And as you heard with my reference to rugby, motorbiking and rowing lodges, where there is a healthy common interest outside, the Masonic side can work extremely well, so long as people remember the line that the business, the professional, the work side doesn't come into the lodge. Where it follows, the livery company lodge actually doesn't have a close link with the livery company, and there are some of those, then I'd be inclined to make shall we say, a free choice in terms of the lodge or indeed the livery company. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question. Brevin, we're getting on in time, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick 3 more questions, and then we're going to have to end it there, I'm afraid. So unfortunately, we won't be able to get through all the questions. So if I could just start with Jack Saunders, if you could just ask your question, that'd be great.
Hello, Sir David. As your other role as the president of the university scheme, obviously there's a lot of crossover between the university scheme and the new young and light blue clubs. Can you see a way that we could work more closely to get like the two schemes together to help further the future of Freemasonry?
Yes, it's cooperation, not merger, Jack. The idea of merging the two has come up, but they've got such different purposes, such different audiences that I don't see that as the way forward. But cooperation in events, cooperation in locally, if I can put it that way, between individual, between the scheme and light blues clubs, in particular places where there's a link. South Wales, the Colonnade club, for example, where Colonnade chapter is in the scheme, as are the Singleton Lodge in Swansea and the University of Cardiff Lodge in Cardiff. So I think working together locally, yes, but I would keep the two schemes separate because they're focusing on different things. But I know that the university scheme committee is very keen to do just that.
Great stuff. Thank you very much.
We've got one from Barry himself, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so David, you was at the Essex Cornerstone Lodge consecration in March. I just wondered what your favourite part of the day was, whether it was the ceremony or the festive board. Kind of highlights for you.
There were two bits. One was a moment of regret, and it's the kind of thing just what makes one think whether we should change the rules. A number of entered apprentices and fellowcrafts made the trip to Freemasons Hall, and because a consecration is done in the third degree, they couldn't come in and watch the consecration. So those doing the consecrating team went and said hello to them outside the Grand Temple before the consecration itself, and that was a moment of regret. It's a pity, and I know that one or two minds are looking at whether, in that kind of case, we could relax the rules a bit. In a funny kind of way, the high point was there was something like 650, Barry, people in the Grand Temple, and at there's the consecration and then the first meeting of the lodge, which is the installation of the Primus Master. And as you will all know, brethren, everyone below the rank of an installed master is asked to leave the Grand Temple in this case ahead of the inner working. And of the 650 people, 300 stood up and left. And you might think that half the people in the room leaving the party was a bad thing, but no, we all at the top end thought that was terrific, because what that said was there were 300 young Masons in and around Essex who would come to celebrate the consecration of that new lodge. And as a sign for the future, I thought that was terrific.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That's great, thank you. And lastly, if we can have PJ Bansal's question, that would be brilliant.
I think PJ had to leave, actually.
Okay, that's no worries. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to end it there, because I think we've gone over a little bit than what we should do anyway. Thank you everyone for the questions. It's really appreciated. Apologies that we couldn't get through everything, but we are quite strict with the times, and we do want to finish.
Barry, if you could, I don't know if you can, but if you could make a note of any questions that you might want answered, I'd be happy to answer them later.
Yeah, sure. I'll get them emailed over to you. Thank you.
That's great. Well, just on behalf of myself and everyone on the clubs, Sir David, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. It's been very engaging and very informative. So thank you very much. And to everyone else that's come on, thank you. It's been brilliant. We have plenty more in the pipeline in terms of meetings. So please get on board and please just enjoy it like you have tonight.
Yeah, so just from me, just to finish up, thank you for, as Matty said, thank you everyone for coming along. A personal thank you from myself to Mitch and to Matty for helping put on this evening. I know that you know, you put on events like this and you worry that no one will turn up, but it's fantastic to see such a large number of you is here and engaged. So I've thoroughly enjoyed the call myself. I've got a real urge to go and visit other districts and groups once I'm allowed to, whether that's because of COVID or my wife will let me. But it's been a real pleasure to connect the clubs together. And as Matty said, we've got more to come. We've got a few more events lined up, more guests. We've got another 6 clubs waiting to join the call. So just keep an eye out, and also keep an eye out for the Facebook page where the recording will be. So thank you, Sir David. We'll end it there, and we'll give you the rest of your evening back. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.